The same article on one of my sites was reachable at 4 different addresses. All 4 returned 200. None of them redirected to any of the others. So as far as anything crawling that site was concerned, I had published the piece 4 separate times, HTTP and HTTPS, with the www and without it. That is 4 before the trailing slash, and on the static properties a 5th, because the path and the same path with indexed HTML both answer. I found it because a buyer asked which URL his placement would sit on, and I could not answer that in one line. Nothing was broken. All 4 loaded a correct, fast page. No audit tool put it near the top of anything. Why I am the one saying this? I run a portfolio of content sites. Several of them are origin-less static builds pushed to a CDN, and a couple are still on WordPress. Similar content on both. The delivery layer underneath is completely different, and I have watched the same kind of article behave differently for reasons that had nothing to do with what it said. One thing before we start, because it governs what I am allowed to claim here. My reporting is in bad shape. I am not going to show you a traffic chart or tell you a fix moved a keyword from position 11 to position 4, because I would be inventing it. So this is about which technical work is worth your afternoon and which is theater. It is not about what any of it earned. The 5 questions, everything that matters fits into 5 questions, and they go in this order. Does the page return the right status code when something asks for it? Is the page allowed to be indexed at all? Is the content in the response the server sends, or assembled afterwards in the browser? Is it fast on a real phone on a real connections? Does one address serve each piece of content or do several? That is the whole list. The other 90-odd items in your audit report are optional work with a warning icon attached. Reachable with the right number. Start here, because when this breaks, nothing else about the page matters. A page returning 404 is gone, whatever else is true about it. A page returning 500 under load is gone at exactly the moment somebody wanted it. I learned that one expensively. A property I run lost a large batch of published articles. Lived for years, linked to, and one day they returned 404 and stayed that way for months before anybody looked. There was no penalty and no dramatic event. The pages stopped existing and the site quietly got smaller. The version that hides from you is the soft 404. The page is gone, but the server returns 200, along with a friendly sorry, we could not find that. Every automated check scores it healthy. You have spent months insisting a page exists when it does not. So crawl your own sitemap and your own internal links and look at what actually comes back on the wire, not what the CMS believes it is serving. Redirect chains belong to the same family. Old URL to newer URL to current URL is 3 round trips instead of 1, and every hop is somewhere for a future mistake to live. Collapse them to 1 hop, an afternoon of work, and it holds until the next migration. Allowed to be indexed at all. Second question, and it has the most spectacular failure mode of the 5. A no index tag shipped from staging to production takes a page out of the index completely, and nothing about that page looks wrong. It loads. It is quick. It renders correctly in a browser. It is simply invisible. I check this on anything I have just moved, migrated, or rebuilt, because that is when it happens. View source, search for no index, then read what your robots file actually says instead of what you remember writing. There is a distinction here that plenty of people have backwards. Robots. TXT governs crawling. The no index tag governs indexing. Blocking a page in robots does not pull it out of the index. It stops anything from reading the page that would have told it to go. If you want a page gone, let it be crawled and let it say no index. Block it in robots and you have locked the door with the instructions still inside. Is the content actually in the response? Third, and this is the one that decides whether your site works only when conditions are good. Open the page and view source. The raw HTML the server sent, which is a different document from the rendered element tree in your DevTools. That tree shows you the state after every script has run. If your article text sits in that raw response, you are fine. If the raw response is an empty div with an ID and 40 kilobytes of JavaScript that goes and fetches the words afterwards, you are asking everything that crawls you to run your application before it can read a sentence. Google renders JavaScript. I am not claiming otherwise. It is a queue with a budget attached, and you have joined that queue for a page that is 900 words and 2 images. This is the clearest advantage the static properties have. The HTML is assembled once, at deploy, and every request after that gets the finished document. No database, no template rendering at request time. Nothing to fault over under load. You can check it in 5 seconds. Fetch the page with curl and search the output for a sentence from the middle of the article. There you are fine. Missing, and you have a rendering dependency you probably never chose. Fast in a way a person would recognize. Fourth, this is where the industry has drifted furthest into make-believe. A lab score is a simulation, run on a machine in a data center with a throttling profile applied to it. It is repeatable, which is why everyone likes it. It is a measurement of the simulation. I am in an odd position to check the real version of this. I run mobile proxy lines on actual carrier SIMs, so putting a page through a genuine mobile network on a genuine handset cost me nothing except the walk to the rack. Pages of mine that score in the 90s have taken 6 or 7 seconds to become readable on a real line in a lift lobby. NewScore told me that. A phone did. What eats those seconds is boring and roughly the same everywhere I look. A hero image nobody compressed, 4 font files, an analytics tag, a heat map tag, a chat widget and a consent banner. Everyone loading ahead of the text. Delete the chat widget, nobody answers. That beats a week of build tuning. The weekend that changed nothing. Here is the technical work I did that produced nothing I can point to. I spent a weekend taking one property from a lab score in the high 70s to 96. Deferred the scripts. Inlined the critical CSS, preloaded the fonts, ran the whole ritual. The score moved. I have no evidence that anything else did. That site was already serving finished HTML of a CDN, so the part I optimized was the part that was already fastest, and I made it faster. On the same site, I spent an evening adding structured data across a few hundred pages. Article markup, breadcrumbs, all of it. No rich result ever appeared. It validates perfectly to this day. The structured data may well be doing something. I cannot show you one thing that changed because I added it, and I would rather say that plainly than dress it up as a win. The address problem, which is the real one, back to the 4 URLs. Because duplicate reachable addresses are the most common serious problem I find, and they look like nothing at all. No error, no warning in most tools. Every version loads and every version is correct. Nobody clicking around would notice. Each address is treated as a separate document until something decides otherwise. Links split across them. One gets crawled more, another gets indexed, and the version you actually promote is not necessarily the one representing you. On WordPress, it usually comes from settings that drifted apart and the plugin rewriting URLs. On static hosting, it comes from the file system. A folder with an index file answers to the folder path with a slash, and the file path, because that is what serving files means. Either pick one. One protocol, one hostname, one slash convention, one path per document, everything else 301s to it, and every canonical tag on the site names the survivor. Then check your own internal links, use it. I had pages linking to their own site without the www the canonical set with it, which costs nothing to fix and confuses everything that reads the page. The 100 warnings and how to read them. Point any audit tool at a site of real size and it hands back hundreds of issues. That list feels like a work queue. It is not one. Audit tools sort by what the crawler can detect cheaply. A missing meta description is trivial to detect, so it appears 400 times in red. 2 host names serving your whole site is a judgment about architecture, so it appears once in a section below the fold. The effort to fix and the cost of not fixing have no relationship to each other, and the report is ordered by neither, so triage against the 5 questions. Reachability first, indexability second, duplicate addresses third. Past that you are in optional territory. Image alt text is worth doing because blind people use your site. It is an accessibility obligation with an SEO footnote attached, and treating it as a ranking emergency because a tool colored it red is how weekends disappear. The static argument, with the price on it. I have moved several properties to static builds on a CDN, and I would do it again. The honest ledger looks like this. Gone. PHP versions, plugin updates that break at 3 in the morning, a database, caching plugins, an origin server that can fall over. 2 of my WordPress sites went down together because of a platform version change underneath them. The static ones cannot have that problem because there is nothing running. The price, a build step. You edit a file, you build, you deploy. No logging in to fix a typo from your phone in a taxi. And if the build breaks, publishing stops until you fix it, which is a worse day than a slow page. It is a trade and it is not free. I take it because the category of problem it removes is the one that has actually taken my sites offline, and the category it adds is one I can watch happening in front of me. What none of this can do. Now the limit. Perfect technical delivery of an article nobody wants is a perfectly served page that nobody reads. No status code, no canonical tag, and no build pipeline creates demand that was never there. I have sites in decent technical shape with very few readers because the topics were picked badly. Delivery was never the problem on those. This work removes obstacles. If the content is good and something technical is stopping it being served, fixing that releases something real. If the content is weak, you have built a very fast road to a place nobody is going. The order I work in. Concretely, on any site I take over or rebuild. Fetch the homepage and 20 random articles with curl, and read both the status codes and the raw HTML. That clears reachability and rendering in one pass. Hunt for stray no-index tags, and read robots.txt properly rather than from memory. Request the site 4 ways. HTTP, HTTPS with www without, and watch what redirects where. Load 3 pages on a real handset on a real mobile connection, and count the seconds until the words are readable. Then, last, open the audit tool and read its report as suggestions from something that cannot tell which of them matter. The exact checks in the order I run them are at theseodesk.com. Subscribe for SEO that has actually